Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's me, Diazzo, back with Card 5 Vanguard deck profile, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't like, comment, subscribe, and also sorry. This time we're covering Keter Sanctuary Set 12 Bastion Accord specifically. So, for the record, I mentioned that because there are two different Keter Sanctuary Bastion decks I built. One focusing on all grade 3s, the other version also went up today, so go check out that one if that's the one you're looking for. But if you're looking for the deck that specifically focuses on Bastion Accord, then you are in the right place. It does not focus on all grade 3s, it has a mixture of grade 1s, 2s, and 3s, of course. So let's go get this started, shall we, and see what we got. But just to talk about it, Bastion Accord is that new grade 3 that we got that obviously works well with grade 1s and 2s and allows the deck to kind of function a bit better in terms of defensive power. And this deck is like pretty much a scrap of cards of like, if I ever had the ability to run them in Bastion, I would. And while I always said it as a joke, but lo and behold, it actually happens. Now I kind of have to keep myself to my own words. So yeah, let's get the start and see what I made myself do. Anyways, first we have our starter today, and that definitely Bow's base, grade 0 boost, 5k show, 6k base, auto and Rotopine for 1 second draw card, standard star and a special to free draw if you win second. None of the Rhyme Land really requires base, but hey, like I said in the other video, he is my favorite of the Keter starters, and also he has a bow, and I am biased towards bows 100% of the way, so obviously he's going to be my ride deck starter whether we need him or not. And then we have our triggers for an over trigger and True Arbitrator Dragon of 100 Swords Duravassal. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose or mute against movement for the turn. And if revealed it during drive check, activate its additional effect which you get until end of turn. You also perform drive checks for the balance your rear guard attack. All around, pretty solid. You know, getting rear guard drive checks is great. In this deck, it's typically 5 drives and not 6, but there are times where it is possible to hit 6 drives. And believe it or not, this deck is the deck that I've hit the over consistently in all of Keter. So take that as you will. Either way, though, being able to get rear guard traffic is nice. You can obviously use Volnut to get more multi-attack and do it more consistently, or Euphoria to get more resources back, but I choose Duravassal because A, I don't really like using the Elemental overs outside of Griffo Gila, and even then I don't really use them in that deck. But also, I just like pulling this and then getting the drive checks, and I also just love this thing's art. So that's kind of like 2 reasons right there. I'm just 100% biased towards Duravalis here. Either way, though, one Duravalis, like I said, you can run the other 2, or you can run Armor Tino because they have the exact same effect, but I prefer Duravalis. And then we have our normal triggers. We run a total of 7 crit, 3 of them being Net of Orderly, Bow, Lavarche, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. You can really make this anything you want, but like I said with base, I am 100% biased towards Bow, and look at that! He has a bow in his art. Yeah, it's kind of clear why I picked this. And then we have 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power. Critical trigger, auto react amount of boosted, put these units to soul, choose one units, it goes to 2k for the turn. All around, pretty solid, it goes to soul. Granted, it is physically impossible for this deck to run into a soul problem, but I mean, well, it is possible, but it's doubtful. But in case you do, by some arbitrary reason, that's what Blade Feather's here for. But like I said, it's almost near impossible for that to happen. But hey, it's a free 2k if you need it, and it's a nice call target off of Ford. So there is that. So for Blade Feather Dragon, we run a total of 7 crits for pressure. And then we run 4 draws in Protection Magic Proby. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continues Guard Circle. If opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 Gator, it gets plus 5k shield. So, you know, 10k shield. The nice to have, it's also a draw trick, so it helps increase the hand. And unlike the other Bastion deck that has a bunch of grade 3s, this hand is not an illusion of guarding power, meaning you could actually have a lot of guarding power coming in from Proby. So it's nice to have that extra draw to help fill out the hand. And the deck already has enough numbers and pressure to this, so we really want the crits. We don't really need fronts that much, even for the defensive power. And then we have 4 heals and Knight of Clarion Strings Recuila. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power, standard heal. Nice about it's just a standard normal heal. I don't really like the effectives too much. They're a fluctuating 10 to 25k guard, and I have a consistent 15k over that 10 to 25, even though the 25 is higher. But I mean, hey, if you want to run the effectives, go ahead, but I do prefer the normal heals. And also, I just use Recruila here, because even though I have fond memories with Arshes, I was like, hey, new grade 3, new heal triggers like Nirvana, and yeah, Recruila has kind of shown me a trend where 2 of them will show up almost instantly, and then the other 2 will show up, and I kid you not, at perfect timing. I don't understand how, like, Miracle Heal perfect timing, or, like, the turn before I need to Miracle Heal perfect timing, and I'll typically sack 2 of them at once. Like, that's the other trend, too, that the 2 of them are always on, like, there's 2 sets of them, and then those 2 are always like on opposing ends. Like, so I will always see 2 of them whenever I see 1 of them at least, which is weird. But anyways, Recula, very good heal. Even though we've only just started working together, we've seemed to have some good memories already. So for Recula, and I am glad to be taking this journey with her. And the rest of the triggers, obviously. Then move on to our grade 1s. First, we have 2 copies of the thing I didn't think I would put in the deck, and then, like I said, I literally said, if I get a new, like, main grade 3 for Keter Sanctuary this set, I'm gonna put it in, and, yeah, we kind of see what happens here. Anyways, Yellow Jewel Beast Topaz, and honestly, I didn't think this thing would work as good as it does in deck, but it fucking does. Great on boost, 5k shield, 8k base. When placed on rear guard or put on guard circle, put up to a total of 2 cards from your soul drops that were in the ride deck originally back into the ride deck face up. There is only one other card in this deck that technically soul blast, because this card technically soul blasts as well, but technically it doesn't. And you typically want to use that card first to get the ride deck into drop zone. If you can't, well then you're just losing 2 soul to lose 2 soul, but hey, it still works. So when it's placed on rear guard circle, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, you have to 1 unit card from one with a grade less than or equal to your vanguard, call it to rear guard circle and shuffle the deck. And if it is placed during other than your main phase, specifically rest the called unit, so it's placed during your opponent's turn or during your battle phase, or like I said, and during any point other than your main phase, you call the unit as rest. But hey, it's a free rear guard without CB and technically costs 2 soul, but possibly doesn't cost 2 soul, so that's nice to have. And then the other ability, which I still have from an on-camera match, where I wanted to use that ability because I had 2 of them, and I want to save one for guarding power, but hey, screw me, but the guarding power actually came in handy, and that is guard circle. It gets plus 15k shield for the battle. 20k shield works regardless of what grade you or your opponent is at. That match, I needed 20k shield to guard, and I didn't have it outside of this. And I was honestly tempted to take the attack just to pull a heal and pray for the best. And I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't see a heal off that ability. So I used Topaz to, even though it lost me the game, kind of. It kept me alive for the turn, but I didn't have enough resources to kind of hit back as hard as I could next turn. But hey, the 20k shield came in handy. Moral of the story, Topaz, amazing guard card, has done his job really well, and that was only the 3rd game I ever played with this deck. And also the top 5 ability is also very solid. I'm very glad that I can say, even though there's only 2 uses of him, I've consistently seen every single copy of him every game I've played with this deck so far, which is good. So it is nice that it's either a 20k shield or an extra rear guard to board. Sometimes it's both of one of them and then none of the other, or it's 1/1 each. 2 of Topaz, very solid grade 1. Not much more I can say about him. Then we have 3 copies of Bard of the Heavenly Instrument Lieutenant. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Literally the only reason I wanted to build this deck in the form of, like, you know, has grade 1s and 2s, because I just wanted to use this card for once, because I never did before, and I just was curious about it. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto rear guard, when it boosts a grade 3 or greater unit, regardless of its vanguard or rear guard. If you have a vanguard Bastion's card name, very easy to pull off in this deck. It's 5k power for the turn. Cool. So 13k booster is nice to have, and not to mention that you find a way to stand it as well. That's even better, because that means it's going to be an 18k booster the second time around. But, you know, it hits for numbers. It's nice to have. In this play, I think in the place of Topaz, I used to have like the 1 grade 1 that was like, if you pull no triggers in your drive check, or sorry, if you pull no grade 3s in your drive check, you can drop it to restand a unit, which is a possibility. But hey, I kind of wanted Lieutenant over it, and also wanted to use Topaz, and yeah, that's kind of how it worked out. Either way, though, Lieutenant over here, very solid grade 1. She's a 13k booster. If you run the restander, 18k booster, and it's nice to have. It's just a good grade 1. Does it for free, and you're always going to have at least 1 grade 3 on the board, so it's a nice booster for that. 3 of. Then move on to our PG, 4 copies of Paladinium Zeo Dragon, grade 1 boost, 0 k base, continuous sentinel. You may have up to only 4 summons in deck. I'll put on guard circle, choose a card, choose one of your units, it cannot be hit on the battle, and if your hand is 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand to discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this and only one other card is in your hand, placed on guard circle, you don't have to discard one, which is great, because that means you go as aggressive as you want in the early game, and for once, unlike the other Bastion deck, where as aggressive as you want in the early game means first grade 3 turn, this deck can start going either on turn 1, though technically unless you call Lieutenant, you don't really do anything on turn 1, or, you know, grade 1 turn, or grade 2 turn is where you rush with, like, your other units, which is possible. So, you know, when you eventually rush your opponent, they hit you back, you play the PG while you only have 1 hand card, which actually happens, like, which I also like about the fact that Bastion feels like a normal deck for once. But, you know, being able to drop down the PG and not to something is great, because that means when your opponent hits you with a really big number, probably stuck to criticals, you can just run Paladinium Zeo Dragon, you're fine. So I'll run 4 copies of Paladinium Zeo Dragon. You can run Aegis-Mire Dragon, because they both do the same thing, and honestly, a normal me probably would have done 2 of each, but I chose to make it a solid 4 Paladinium Zeo Dragon, because, I don't know, it's like a new Bastion, so I feel like I should have, like, the newer version, quote-unquote, of Aegis-Mire, which is the thing. I really hope, like, by the end of D, they, like, retrain all the PGs, but instead of them being PGs, they train them up to be, like, normal units, you know, like how the original, quote-unquote, ride line cards of, like, Chronojet, Asha, and Alt-Mile all became, like, really good at the end of G, because, like, they all gained resist, or, like, they had some other skill, like Mary Block to some extent, and Metal Party. I guess, well, okay, for Chronojet, that's not a good example, but for, like, Alt-Mile, how it was Levero and Phalanx, which is why those are 2 so my favorite units of all time in Brave, but you get the point. Either way, 4 copies of Paladin, very good PG. Then we have last grade 1's the grade 1 in the right deck, one of in the right deck, none in the main deck of Knight of Heavenly Sword 4. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, AK base, auto removed upon by a Knight of Heavenly Spear. Rooks reveal 2 grade 3s from your hand. Very easy to do in this deck. There are 2 ways to do it very consistently with 1 card. Reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rearguard circle if it's a unit card, and put it to drop zone if it isn't. So, again, a lot of people complain about this skill hitting triggers. You know, this is the deck that I've hit the heal trigger the most so far, because I think, like, what? Out of like half the games I've seen now with this deck, which granted isn't a lot, but still is a decent amount, I've hit a heal off this. But at the same time, that typically means I either drew a heal that turn or I drew a check a heal that turn. But, you know, being able to call rear guard such as Blade Feather for boosting, or Topaz because he can be placed from anywhere, or Lieutenant for rear guards, or any of my grade 3s or 2s, which did happen once, is very solid. So, like, I don't really mind Fort too much. I take the good with the bad, so it takes it as you will. And this other skill, which is impossible to pull off in this deck because there's no way to place it from drop onto rear guard, put it from soul onto rear guard. The only way to make it leave the board from drop is to use this thing. But hey, its skill does work if you find a way to call it, and that is act rear guard circle once per turn. Now, counter Bastion 1, choose one of your grade 3 vanguards, I guess, plus 5k power for the turn. Cool. If you did find a way to call it to board, free 5k to vanguard, but it's not really worth it, so it's either one of in the right deck, none in the main deck. Then we have our not only grade 2. I forgot to change this around. Well, I'm just going to keep this here, and that is Knight of Heavenly Spear Rooks. Don't worry, we have 2 more grade 2s. I just forgot to change the order. Anyways, grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, auto ropan by Apex Ruler Bastion. Reveal 3 cards from your hand to draw a card. That were grade 3s, obviously. So, again, very easy. It is a little bit hard to pull off this deck, but I have yet to brick with it, so there's that. And then continues to be a guard during your turn. If you have 3 more grade 3 units, it gets boosted 5k power. Okay, that is possible to have happen, but the deck has enough boosters in the form of Topaz, one of the grade 3s actually being the booster themselves, and Lieutenant, which is nice to have when I had all 3 of them on board. It's just nice to look at like all 3 of my alternate boosters, but also in the sense of like, you don't need this. Again, there's no real way to call this out to board, but hey, if you find a way to do it, go ahead. But it's not really worth it because it does require the 3 grade 3s to get boost, and most of the time you're only going to have 2 grade 3s, 1 Bastion on the Vanguard circle, and then 1 grade 3 on rear guard, so take that as you will. But hey, if you do find a way to call it, good for you. One of in the right deck, none in the main deck. And then we have the other 2 grade 2s. Again, normally I lead with these 2 first, but I accidentally forgot to move Rooks around. First, we have 3 copies of Knight of Rendering Flash Caribre. The other reason I built this deck, it had nothing to do with a court skill. It had to do with me wanting to use Lieutenant for once, and then me wanting to use Caribre because I only used Caribre once. It was, and I mean once in general before I touched this deck, and that is because I think I tried it in Youthberg. I don't remember what deck I tried it in. It was like one of the Keter decks around the time Caribre came out, and basically Caribre was horrible for me. Like, he never showed, he was at 4 copies. He never showed up, and the one time I got to play him out of like the 30 games I tried to summon him, out of the one time I played him, he flipped over 3 triggers. So I took that as like a fuck you sign, and like, it's not worth running him. And then because I was like rebuilding this deck, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give Caribre another chance, and I don't regret it. This time, Caribre and me are actually working together. Granted, he gives me a trigger and a PG, but then he actually gives me a unit I want to call. So there's that. Either way, though, Caribre, great chance of 5k shield, 10k base, nice art. All of them placed on rear guard circle by counter Bastion 1 and soul Bastion 1. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose a card from among them, go reveal it, call it to rear guard circle, and if it's a grade 2 or less unit card, put it to your hand. If it isn't, shuffle your deck. All around pretty solid because it either gets you, this deck has no orders, so it either gets you a rear guard or it gets you a hand card, which is a grade 3, and so it's either Persona Ride or like, so one of the bastions for targeting of Persona Rides or for discarding, or it is a grade 3 that you want to call to rear guard and just goes to hand first. Either way though, Caribre is a very solid grade 2, get you rear guards, get you hand cards, one of the 2, it works well, and this deck doesn't have any CB or Soul Blast problems technically. Like again, this is the only card in the deck that Soul Blast, so technically you want to hit this before you hit this, and then just send stuff to drop some, but hey, if you can't, it's fine. Either way though, 3 copies of Caribre, very solid grade 2, gets rear guards, gets hand cards, the whole shebang, and it works well with Topaz. Then we have 3 copies of our last grade 2 this time, and that is Knight of Nobility Azulius. Grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, contains hand card. When a grade 3 card would be revealed from your hand for the cost of your card's ability, this card may be regarded as revealing a grade 3. Oh, it's only regarded as revealing 1. I thought it was counted as revealing 2. Well, it's a good thing I was revealed the other one, just in case. But, okay, cool. So now I understand his ability. He only works with 1 grade 3, but it doesn't matter for me, at least. But, hey, being able to reveal as a grade 3 is nice, so you brick less often with Fort and Rogues, which is an option. So that's always one of my things that I feared when I built this deck, is that how often am I going to brick with these 2? And thankfully, it's not actually a lot. Frankly, I've yet to brick off that ability at all, which is nice to have. Either way, though, again, being able to reveal as a grade 3 is solid, even though before I thought it was as 2 grade 3s, but, hey, I'll still take the 1. And then Audrey placed on rearguard circle. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard Bastion's card, it doesn't matter if it's a Cord, OG, or Prime. By the way, we don't run Prime in this deck, and I'll explain why later. But if you did have run Prime, you could use that. Counter Boss 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guard and same column as it, and put it to the bottom of the deck. Very solid ability. Being able to get rid of a pesky interceptor is nice to get, or a pesky booster, especially for something that can't be retired, but it can be chosen. All around, very nice to have. And I remember when I first built this deck, I thought it might come into a CB problem thanks to how often I thought I'd be spamming Caribre and Bastion. And I thought to myself that if this deck runs into a CB problem, or if I don't see my Bastions enough, I'd run Delibre, the on-hit check top 7 for a Bastion to add it to hand. And if it was in the back row when you did it, you retire it. I thought I would have to run that over this thing to, mitigate the CB problem and Bastion searching. But no, this deck sees Bastions really often to the point where it's not really bricking. And also it, is consistently not hitting CB problems. So there's that. Basically I made a backup plan for nothing. So 3 of Azulius. Very solid grade 2. Put stuff to bottom deck, makes it easier to not brick off of these 2, and just all around very solid grade 2, 3 of. Then we move on to our grade 3s. There's a total of if you counted right, and if I did the math right, which I'm pretty sure I did, there's 15 grade 1s, there's 15 grade 3s. So there's that. Anyways, starting off, 2 copies of Knight of War Damage Fusado. Grade 3, 2.5% 13k base, continuous event, rear guard circle. This unit cannot be chosen by opponent's card effects. And then all the rear guard, when this unit attack hits, counter charge 1, solo charge 1. All around pretty solid, cannot be chosen by card effects, meaning they can't imprison this, they can't retire it. I mean, they can if they do mass hit with stuff like Bath Sagra, but they can't prison it, they can't target retire it, they can't target it bounce it. If they hit a bunch of things at once, then it's game, but I mean, hey, they can't touch it otherwise, which is pretty nice to have. And also being an on-hit counter charge 1 and soul charge 1, again, I put it in here for resource management, but here, it's just mainly because that is a good skill. Hey, it can get soul, so you have extra fodder for Caribre in case you have to use Topaz first, which sadly I did have to once so far, but hey, once is a good number. And then also CB, because just in case these guys, along with Bastion, gets a little bit too CB heavy. So 2 of Fusado, I see him consistently enough, believe it or not, and again, it gets CB and soul charge, so what's not to like about him? 2 of. And then we have 4 copies of Heavenly Wings of Purity Honataria, grade 3, 2.5% 13k base, auto when placed on rear guard circle if you have Vanguard Bastion's card name. Again, Apex Ruler Bastion, who's in this deck, or Accord, who acts as Apex Ruler Bastion, or Prime, who again isn't in this deck, but if you did have him, you could use him with him. Counterblast 1, choose up to 1 grade 3 card from your hand, call it to rear guard circle, and if you called a card and you have 5 more units, draw a card. All around pretty solid. I always think that it has to be 5 other units, but thankfully it's always 5 units, but I always check just to make sure. But that means, you can call, and none of them have to be specifically grade 3 outside of the unit this is called by. So, you can use Caribre to add that to hand. That did actually happen one game. Then I called Azulius, and then I called Honataria because I told I had 4 at that moment. The Vanguard, the 2 grade 2s, and then Honataria. Use Honataria's skill to call Fusado, draw a card, boom. Very solid combos, and he has boost. Actually, no, I didn't call Fusado. I called another Honataria. I drew another card, and then I called the Fusado, but then I had boost for all my boys. Either way, though, being able to, and then his other skills, obviously, continues rear guard during 25, 6 more units, it gets boost. Very helpful. This deck pretty much spores rear guards out the wazoo. It's very nice. It can play very well against board nuke decks to where, unless they nuke your board 2 to 3 times, depending if you bricked or not, you're pretty much good to keep going with the board. Either way, though, being able to get boost, nice to have, and not to mention the fact it's basically cheaper all into where it can call stuff and get a draw. It's also very nice as well. All around, Honataria is a very solid grade 3. I like his skill a lot. Does well. 4 of Honataria. It actually might be a female, but at the same time, I'm going to go with he, because that's just how I see it. Then we have 4 copies of Grandeur Edge Dragon. This first skill I thought was the same as this one. Grade 3, 10%, 13k base, continuous hand card. When a grade 3 would be revealed for the hand as a cost of a card's ability, it may be regarded as revealing 2 cards, so all around pretty solid. It makes 4 basically free, and combined with Rooks, literally any grade 3 plus this or this thing works just as well. And then continuous rear guard to guard circle. If you have Vanguard Bastion's card name, this unit gives 10k power and 10k shield, active on both players' turns. All around, very solid. You can combine it with a core to be a 28k base during both players' turns, and when it's in your hands, a 10k shield. And not to mention the fact that even though you're mostly going to be seeing a core most of the time, so, being an untargetable 28k base is pretty nice. But, if you're on regular Bastion, it's a 25k base too, so there's that. All around, Grandeur Edge is a very solid grade 3, adds numbers to himself, makes him a really good defender for worst case scenario, really good revealed target, so you can use Fort and Rooks a lot more consistently. And not to mention the fact too, again, he's a big beat stick, so 4 of Grandeur Edge, typically a restand target on this deck. He's basically the alt of this deck, take that as you will. 4 of Grandeur Edge. And then move on to our last 2 cards. The first 2 are Apex Ruler Bastion. Of course, normally I put my the lower copies up here, where Fusado is, but I mean, because both of them are Bastions, I might as well just put them together. Anyways, Apex Ruler Bastion, 2 of in the main deck, none in the ride deck. Grade 3, 2.5% 13k base. Continues Vanguard Circle during turn. All your grade 3s go 2k, so that goes to the entire board, so your possible board. If you manage to have a full board of grade 3s, which believe it or not, this deck still does consistently can hit a full board of grade 3s if it wanted to, so consistent 30k swing is nice to have, especially if you're going first. But then auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of this unit, that your drive check revealed a grade 3 card. Still possible in this deck, just less likely to happen. Choose one of your rear guards after discarding a hand card to stand it, and it gets plus 10k power for the turn. All around pretty solid, adds more numbers to rear guards, and makes them, in terms of numbers, more pressureful than Accord over here, but you still most of the time sit on Accord. But the thing to note about Apex Ruler Bastion is because Accord has the ability to change his name to Apex Ruler Bastion, you can Persona Ride this one on top of this one and vice versa, which is nice to have, so you can get more numbers consistently. And the point of this one is either A, it is another Bastion, so you can use it more consistently for this discard effect of Bastion Accord, but the other reason is in case you have to go into regular Bastion, because say, for example, your opponent is at grade 2 right now, or they're at grade 3, and you know, actually, well, let's just say grade 2, because grade 3 would imply that it is better to go into Accord, but let's just say that they're at grade 2, and you know next turn is going to be really hard for you, and you know because Accord's drive check ability won't kick in, you know you need numbers to kill. That's where you go into Apex Ruler Bastion. Granted, you skip out on the ride deck, meaning you might lose access to Accord for the rest of the game, but A, you get restand still if you see a grade 3, which at this point in the game, I've yet to... I think I've had like 1 or 2 drive checks where I haven't hit a grade 3, and then the rest of them have at least had 1 grade 3 in them, which is pretty solid. But you get your rear guard stand, and you get the 10k out of it, and you put pressure with it. So that's what Apex Ruler Bastion is here for. It gets the numbers for you and is an alternate ride target in case of Accord not being able to kill, and because you still proc off Persona Ride, it's a good target for that alone. So 2 of Apex Ruler Bastion, you know, he's not the greatest, and most of the times you don't go into him, and most of the time he's just discard fodder for a Accord skill, but if you have to go into him, A, you're probably doing it to win the game via an early game rush, and that's a good enough option for you. So 2 of Apex Ruler Bastion. Then we have last card on the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck of Sword of All People, Bastion Accord. I said it in the other video, I said it, I'm going to say it in this one too. When we first got it, his name was Sword of Mankind Bastion Accord. That was from Discord. I was like, okay, not a bad name, though I do think it's a little bit weird. Then I checked the fandom, we got some other weird name. And then I checked it again, we got Sword of All People, and I was like, oh, that's a weird name. And then I checked another Discord, we got Sword of the Nation, which is what this deck is named after. Because Sword of the Nation, such a badass name in my opinion. And then we get stuck with Sword of All People. Sword of Mankind was so much better than Sword of All People. Why Sword of All People? Why is this what we went with? Why not Sword of the Nation for badassery, or worst case scenario, at least Sword of Mankind? Why Sword of All People? Because it can be worked consistently well with grade 1s and 2s and hell, even 0s now with his skill, but like, you know, fuck it, that's just his name now. I just pretend that this is Sword of the Nation whenever I read it. Anyways, grade 3, 200%, 13k base. Contains Vanguards, also regarded as Apex Ruler Bastion, so again, it works for Persona Ride where you can play this on top of this and get the Persona Ride, or play this on top of this and get the Persona Ride. And because it also works like that, you can also combine it with the ride deck. It works just like Hex or Bakura Marine, where you can now use the ride deck skills consistently with him, which is nice to have. And then his other skills contains Vanguard Circle. All your grade 3 or greater front or rear guards cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, and they plus 5k 1000 power, acting on both players' turns. So all around pretty solid. Meaning, for example, Grandeur Edge over here, that typically the only grade 3 you have on board, at least in the front row, the other ones are Hanatarios in the back row, is a 28k swinger that cannot be chosen by card effects. So nice to have. Granted, again, if they play something like Babsock Guard that hits multiple things at once, then it can be targeted by that. But if it doesn't hit multiple things at once, A, it cannot be hit by it. It's a 28k. So there's nice to have, you know, makes them hard to hit into and makes them a lot easier to defend. And then its last ability is Auto Vanguard Circle. At the end of battle, this unit attacked into anything, whether it's Vanguard or Rear Guard. Choose one of your grade 3 or less units, stand it, or Rear Guard, sorry, stand it. And if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, it gets Auto Rear Guard once per turn. When this unit attacks by counterblasting one, discarding a Bastion card from your hand. This unit can also perform drive checks for the battle until end of turn. All around pretty solid. Typically, whenever I use the skill, and I know I'm playing it wrong, but to me it doesn't make a difference, and technically it doesn't make a difference in the gameplay either. I stand the unit, and then I immediately discard and pay the counterblast for the Bastion, because I know I'm going to swing with that unit anyways, except I do it before I swing with it. I'm doing it as I'm standing the unit, so technically that is illegal, because that's not actually how it works, but I mean, at the same time, again, it doesn't really change how I play it, because I will automatically swing with the unit anyways, so it doesn't really change anything. It just changes the timing of it, but take that as you will. Either way, though, being able to stand your rear guards is nice, because unlike this one, it doesn't require you to see a grade 3 in the drive check, so now I can stand them more consistently. And while yes, both of them can still stand any unit, I mean, to be fair, you're most now going to at least get benefit out of standing grade 3s, because now you get twin drive out of them. So again, this one's more for numbers, and you know, basically first grade 3 turn if you're trying to kill them if you're going first, or you know, the turn that you need numbers basically. While this one, you go for drive checks, and of course you normally stand Grandeur Edge, sometimes Fusado. There was one game where I had to stand Honatari and I still won off it. And you know, you can always benefit from having the grade 1s and 2s on board, because A, they can still stand from the effects, but Bastion Accord still better benefits having grade 3s. The only difference is this one doesn't require you to drive check a grade 3 for his skill, so there's that. Either way, though, being able to pump your grade 3s up by 5k in the firm mode during both players' turns and make them untargetable is pretty nice. Being able to combine Persona Rides is pretty nice, and also being able to restand and give drive checks is pretty nice as well. So easy 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. And without further ado, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is very fun to play. You get consistent rear guards out of the board thanks to stuff like Caribre and Honitaria. Your CB works well thanks to Busada, and the deck doesn't have a CB problem in general. You have Azulius to get rid of pesky rear guards. You have Lieutenant over here just to be a 13k booster. You have Topaz or Tolpaz over here to either become a 20k shield just in case you need, which I did at some point, or get a consistent top 5 search for more rear guards. You got Grandeur Edge over here to be a 28k beat stick. You have 2 Bastions, 1 to get drive checks with, 1 to kill your opponent quickly with in case you have to go first or in case you need the numbers. And I'll mention the fact we have a full onslaught of triggers that works really well and it looks really cool. So without further ado, I'm guys one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us, follow Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your vanguards.